"Get out of my sight, you disgusting man!" The boiling coffee spilled over Mason Rodriguez's torn shirt, staining the pavement with brown drops that mixed with his trampled dignity. The pain didn't come from the hot liquid burning his skin, but from the cold eyes of that woman who looked at him as if he were trash. Vanessa Hartwell, 26 years old, platinum blonde hair pulled back in a perfect bun, designer white dress that cost more than Mason's annual salary, red heels that gleamed like blood under the morning sun of Rodeo Drive. "Daddy should clean the streets of people like you," she spat, wiping her hands with a silk handkerchief as if the very air had contaminated her. "You're visual pollution." Passers-by stopped. Some took out their phones. Others simply stared with that mixture of morbid curiosity and compassion reserved for public displays of cruelty. Mason didn't respond. At 42 years old, he had learned that some battles are fought in silence. His hands, weathered by years of honest work, picked up the broom that had fallen. His tanned face, marked by the sun and life, remained serene. But his eyes held something that Vanessa couldn't decipher, something that gleamed like a secret. "Aren't you going to say anything, vagrant?" Vanessa stepped closer, her expensive perfume clashing with the smell of street disinfectant. "Or don't you know how to speak?" "I know many things, Miss Hartwell," Mason finally replied, his deep and calm voice cutting through the air like a silent knife, "including some that you would prefer not to know." The world stopped for a second. Vanessa blinked, surprised, not just because he had responded, but because he had said her last name. And the way he had said it, with that unsettling calm, made her skin crawl. "How do you know my name?" Mason smiled. A smile that didn't reach his eyes, loaded with something that seemed like knowledge or deferred vengeance. "Your father was a great man, miss. Jonathan Hartwell deserved a better daughter." The words hit Vanessa like a slap. Her father had died 3 years ago in a car accident, a red Ferrari that crashed into a tree on the outskirts of the city. No one talked about it. No one dared. "How dare you?" "Your father knew me," Mason interrupted, picking up his cleaning cart with a dignity that contrasted brutally with his appearance. "And before he died, he entrusted me with something very valuable." Vanessa felt the ground move beneath her feet. What thing?" Mason slowly walked away, pushing his cart down the avenue. But before disappearing into the crowd, he turned one last time. "A yellow Ferrari, Miss Hartwell, and the truth about how he really died." What Vanessa never imagined was that this invisible street cleaner kept a secret more valuable than all her fortune. A Ferrari that would change her life forever. If this story has already touched your heart in this first minute, subscribe to the channel. Here you'll find stories that heal, inspire, and make you believe in human goodness again. 3 days later, Vanessa's Mercedes-Benz broke down in the most unlikely place in the world, the downtown LA Market District, in the heart of the city's humblest neighborhood. The smell of ripe fruit mixed with smoke from street food carts. Barefoot children ran between the stalls, while their mothers shouted prices in voices that cut through the air. The pavement was cracked, splattered with puddles that reflected the grey afternoon sky. Vanessa got out of the car with a disgusted face, her pastel pink dress completely out of place among the worn clothes and stained aprons of the vendors. Her phone had no signal, her driver was sick, and her brother Ryan, the only one who could rescue her, wasn't answering her calls. "Do you need help, miss?" The voice made her turn around. Mason Rodriguez was standing 3 meters away, wearing the same blue overalls and the same serene expression he had during the humiliation 3 days earlier. But now, in his territory, he seemed different, more confident, more powerful. "You," Vanessa murmured, instinctively stepping back. "What are you doing here?" "I live here," Mason replied simply. "This has been my home for 20 years. And you're in trouble." Vanessa looked around. The vendors were watching her with curiosity, but no one else had offered to help. Her luxury car seemed like a spaceship stranded on a hostile planet. "I don't need your help," she lied, though her voice sounded less convincing than usual. "Your radiator is broken," Mason said, approaching the Mercedes with the confidence of someone who knows mechanics. "The problem is serious. You'll need special parts that you can't get here." "Then I'll call a tow truck." "There's no cell coverage in this area until 8 at night," Mason pointed to the antennas under construction. "And luxury tow trucks don't come into the neighborhood after 5. It's 6:30. Vanessa felt panic for the first time in years. She was trapped in a world she didn't know, surrounded by people who looked at her like an exotic animal in a zoo. "What? What do you want?" she finally asked. Mason studied her with those eyes that seemed to see more than they should. "I want you to come to my shop tomorrow." "Your shop?" "I have something to show you. Something that belonged to your father." Mason took from his overalls pocket a golden keychain that shone like liquid gold under the evening light. "But only if you come alone, and only if you're willing to listen to the truth." Vanessa looked at the keys as if hypnotized. They were beautiful, antique, engraved with initials she couldn't read from the distance. But there was something familiar about them, something that awakened buried memories in her mind. "What kind of truth?" "The truth about your father's accident, the truth about why he trusted me, and the truth about what your brother Ryan is hiding." Ryan's name made Vanessa feel a shiver. Her older brother, the perfect heir, the son who had never caused problems. What could he be hiding? "This is ridiculous," she said, but her voice trembled. "Ryan is incapable of—" "Of what, Miss Hartwell?" Mason interrupted her gently. "Of lying, of manipulating, of doing anything for money and power." The words hung in the air like sharp knives. At that moment, an old taxi stopped next to them. The driver, an older man with a baseball cap, rolled down the window. "Can I take the lady downtown?" he asked with genuine kindness. Vanessa got into the taxi without saying goodbye, but as she drove away, she couldn't stop looking in the rearview mirror. Mason remained standing next to her broken Mercedes, with the golden keys shining in his hand. But when their eyes met through the glass, Vanessa felt for the first time that this man knew something about her past that she had never heard. Vanessa didn't sleep that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the golden keys and heard Mason's serene voice talking about secrets and hidden truths. At 3 in the morning, she got up and went to her father's study, a room that had remained intact since his death. The accounting books were still on his desk. Family photographs smiled from their silver frames, and on the wall hung the portrait of Jonathan Hartwell, a 60-year-old man with kind eyes and a smile that had conquered the business world. "What secrets were you keeping, Dad?" Vanessa whispered, touching the glass of the photograph. The next day at 4 in the afternoon, she found herself walking through the cobblestone streets of the central neighborhood, following the directions Mason had given her. She wore jeans and a simple blouse, trying to go unnoticed, but her natural beauty and elegant movements betrayed her as someone who didn't belong to that place. Mason's shop was a 2-story building with a red brick facade and windows fogged by years of work. A faded sign read, "Rodriguez, General Mechanics." But what caught Vanessa's attention were the cars outside. A classic Porsche, a restored Mustang, a 70s Jaguar, all in impeccable condition. "You arrived on time," Mason said, appearing from inside the shop. He had changed his dirty overalls for a clean one, and Vanessa noticed for the first time that he had surgeon's hands, precise, well cared for, intelligent. "This place—" Vanessa looked around, surprised. "It's not what I expected." People see what they want to see," Mason replied. "Your father was one of the few who looked beyond appearances." He led her inside the shop, where the smell of motor oil mixed with something more refined. Leather, polished wood, mechanical perfection. The tools were organized like surgical instruments. There were certificates on the walls, photographs of classic cars, and in a corner, a small office with automotive engineering books. Are you an engineer?" Vanessa asked, noticing a diploma from Stanford University. "Mechanical engineer, specialization in European luxury cars," Mason confirmed. "I worked 10 years for Ferrari in Italy before returning to this country." Vanessa felt the world wobble. Everything she had assumed about this man was crumbling like sand castles. "Then why do you work cleaning streets?" "Because sometimes one has to hide to survive," Mason replied with a sadness he hadn't shown before. "And because your father asked me to do it." "My father?" Mason walked toward the back of the shop, where there was a metal door with 3 different locks. He took out the golden keychain and began to open them one by one. "Jonathan hired me 5 years ago to restore his personal Ferrari, not the red one he drove every day, but a special one that no one else knew about." The door opened with a metallic sigh. Behind it was the most beautiful thing Vanessa had ever seen in her life. A bright yellow Ferrari Testarossa, like a ray of sunshine, captured in metal and glass. Every curve was perfect. Every detail shone as if it had come from the factory that very morning. The black leather seats were impeccable. The instrument panel looked like a luxury spaceship. "My God," Vanessa whispered, approaching the car as if it were a sacred relic. "Your father commissioned it from me as a gift for your 25th birthday, Mason explained. "We spent 2 years restoring it. Every piece was imported directly from Italy. Every detail was perfected to obsession." Vanessa touched the hood with trembling fingers. "Why didn't he ever give it to me?" "Because he died 3 days before your birthday." Silence filled the shop like a physical presence. Vanessa felt tears burning her eyes as she remembered that birthday. The saddest of her life, celebrated in a hospital while her father fought for his life after the accident. "But there's something else," Mason continued, his voice becoming more serious. "Something I saw the night before the accident." "What did you see?" Mason opened the driver's door of the yellow Ferrari and took out a small security camera from the glove compartment. "Your brother Ryan was here that night. He went into the garage of the family house and manipulated your father's red Ferrari." The air disappeared from Vanessa's lungs. "What? What are you saying?" "I'm saying I saw Ryan partially cutting the brake cables. I'm saying I filmed everything because something in his behavior seemed suspicious." Mason handed her the camera with slightly trembling hands. "And I'm saying your father didn't die in an accident." Vanessa took the camera as if it were a bomb about to explode. "Ryan knew your father was going to leave early that morning to meet me. He knew he would take the mountain road where brakes are vital." Mason's voice broke. "Your brother killed your father, Miss Hartwell, and I have proof." The world stopped. The yellow Ferrari gleamed under the shop lights like a silent witness. The tools hung in their places like instruments of an interrupted symphony, and in the air floated the most terrible truth Vanessa had ever heard. "If you agree to see this video, your life will change forever," Mason had told her, while the golden keys shone like promises of revelations that would destroy everything she believed she knew about her family. Vanessa took the camera with hands that trembled like leaves in the wind. The small device weighed as if it contained the entire world. "Before you see this," Mason said softly, "you need to know there's no going back. Truth can't be unlearned." "Show me," Vanessa whispered, though her voice sounded as if it came from far away. Mason connected the camera to a small television he had in his office. The screen lit up with grainy black and white images. The date in the lower corner said, March 15th, 2021, 11:47 p.m. The scene showed the Hartwell Mansion garage. Vanessa immediately recognized her father's red Ferrari, gleaming under the security lights. Everything seemed normal until a figure slipped through the shadows. Ryan. Her older brother moved stealthily, constantly looking back as if afraid of being discovered. He carried tools in his hands and headed directly toward the front of the red Ferrari. "I can't see clearly what he's doing," Vanessa murmured, approaching the screen. "Wait," Mason said, forwarding the recording to a clearer shot. And then Vanessa saw everything. Ryan was under the hood, working meticulously on what appeared to be cables. He partially cut some, adjusted others, and then carefully cleaned any evidence of his presence. The process lasted exactly 17 minutes. When he finished, Ryan stood next to the car for a moment as if admiring his work. Then he smiled, a cold, calculated smile that Vanessa had never seen on her brother. "My God," she whispered, covering her mouth with her hands. "It's true. He killed him." "Your father left at 6 in the morning the next day," Mason continued. "He was coming here to see the finished yellow Ferrari. The brakes failed at Whitestone Curve, exactly where Ryan knew they would fail." Tears ran down Vanessa's cheeks without her realizing it. 3 years of mourning, 3 years of missing her father, 3 years of believing it had been a cruel accident of fate. And it had all been a lie. "Why?" she asked with a broken voice. "Why would Ryan do something like this?" Mason turned off the television and sat across from her. "For the inheritance. Your father had changed his will 2 weeks before he died. Ryan was going to receive 40% of the company, you 40%, and the remaining 20% was destined for a charitable foundation. But with Dad dead, with your father dead, and you considered emotionally unstable from grief, Ryan obtained total control of Hartwell Corporation. $800 million, miss. That's worth a life to men like your brother." Vanessa felt nauseous. She got up abruptly and walked toward the yellow Ferrari, needing something beautiful to focus her gaze on. "Why didn't you go to the police with this evidence? Who would have believed me?" Mason laughed bitterly. "A humble mechanic against the son of the country's most powerful businessman. Ryan would have destroyed the evidence, and I would have been found dead in some alley." "So you made yourself invisible," Vanessa murmured, beginning to understand. "You hid by cleaning streets. Your father asked me to take care of you if something happened to him, but I didn't know that something would come from his own son." Mason approached the Ferrari and caressed the hood tenderly. "I've been waiting 3 years for the right moment to act." "And why now?" "Because Ryan is about to sell the company to foreign investors. In a week, everything your father built will disappear, and because—" Mason looked directly into her eyes, "because you need to know the truth before it's too late." Vanessa remained silent, processing everything she had heard. Her world had crumbled and rebuilt in less than an hour. Her brother was a murderer. Her father had died for money, and this man, whom she had publicly humiliated, had been her silent protector for years. "What do you want me to do?" she finally asked. "I want you to confront him, publicly. In front of witnesses he can't bribe or intimidate." "How?" Mason smiled, and for the first time since they had known each other, the smile reached his eyes. "Tomorrow is Hartwell Corporation's annual charity gala. All the important businessmen in the country will be there, the media, politicians, the social elite. Ryan would never let me speak. He won't have a choice if you appear with the right evidence." Mason opened the door of the yellow Ferrari. "Your father gave me this for you. It's time you claimed it, along with the truth." Vanessa looked inside the car and for the first time noticed something she had overlooked. A sealed envelope stuck under the dashboard, with her name written in her father's familiar handwriting. "What is that?" "A letter, and the original will, signed and certified, where he clearly specifies that you should inherit 50% of the company if something happens to him." Vanessa felt her legs give way. 50%? Your father changed his mind about Ryan in the last weeks before he died. He had begun to suspect him. Mason touched the envelope with reverence. "Everything is there, the legal truth and evidence of the crime." The air in the shop felt dense, charged with possibilities and dangers. Vanessa looked at Mason, really looked at him, and for the first time saw what her father had seen. An upright, intelligent, brave man. Someone who could be trusted with life itself. "If we do this," she said slowly, "there's no going back." "No," Mason confirmed, "but there isn't one if we don't do it either. Ryan will continue being a free murderer, and you'll continue living a lie." Vanessa extended her hand toward the envelope. But before she could touch it, the sound of footsteps in the main shop made them turn around. Someone had entered. Someone who knew the place well enough to walk without making noise until reaching the back door. "Well, well," said a familiar voice, cold as steel. "So this is where you've been hiding, dear sister." Ryan Hartwell appeared in the doorway, impeccably dressed in a charcoal grey suit. But his smile was the same they had seen in the video. Calculated, dangerous, empty of any human warmth. "And you must be the famous Mason Rodriguez," he continued, his eyes fixing on the mechanic like a predator studying its prey. "The man who has been filling my sister's head with absurd lies." Vanessa felt the ground disappear under her feet when she heard the phrase Ryan pronounced as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "Your dear father died because he didn't know when to leave business to the next generation. And you're going to follow the same path if you don't stop asking questions that don't suit you." The annual Hartwell Corporation Charity Gala was held at the Beverly Hills Grand Hotel, the most elegant building in the city. 500 guests from the business, political and social elite had gathered in the main ballroom, a golden space with crystal chandeliers hanging like captured stars. Ryan Hartwell, dressed in an impeccable black tuxedo, walked among the guests like the king of the world. He smiled, shook hands, received congratulations for the extraordinary success he had brought to Hartwell Corporation since his father's tragic death. "The deal with Singapore investors will be signed next week," he told the Secretary of Commerce. $800 million, the largest transaction in the country's history. Reporters took photographs. Businessmen nodded with admiration. Society ladies whispered compliments. Everything was perfect in Ryan Hartwell's world until the lights went out. The ballroom was plunged into total darkness for exactly 10 seconds. Murmurs of confusion spread among the guests. Some turned on their phone flashlights, others simply held onto their companions. When the lights came back on, there were two figures standing on the main stage. Vanessa Hartwell, dressed in an elegant black dress that enhanced her natural beauty, held a microphone in one hand and an envelope in the other. Mason Rodriguez, for the first time in 3 years, without his work overalls, wore a navy blue suit that revealed what had been hidden. The posture of an educated man, the presence of someone accustomed to moving in important circles. "Good evening," Vanessa said, with a voice that cut through the silence like glass. "I'm sorry to interrupt this beautiful celebration, but there's something everyone needs to hear." Ryan had frozen next to the main table. His face had lost all color. "Vanessa," he murmured, though his voice didn't reach the microphone, "what are you doing?" "My name is Vanessa Hartwell," she continued, ignoring her brother, "daughter of Jonathan Hartwell, founder of Hartwell Corporation, and I've come to talk to you about a murder." The ballroom filled with muffled exclamations. Reporters' cameras immediately focused on the stage. Guests moved closer, creating a circle of expectation that made any escape impossible. "For 3 years," Vanessa said, her voice gaining strength, "we have mourned the accidental death of my father, a good, upright man who dedicated his life to building a company based on values and honesty." Mason approached the microphone. "But Jonathan Hartwell didn't die in an accident," he said, with the authority of someone who knows the facts. "He was murdered by someone he trusted. Someone who manipulated his car so the brakes would fail at the exact place where he knew they would fail." This is absurd!" Ryan shouted from his table, finally finding his voice. "Security! Get these lunatics out of here!" But the security guards didn't move. They had been hired for that specific night by Mason, who had used his life savings to ensure the truth would be heard. I have evidence, Vanessa continued, raising the envelope. Video recordings showing exactly how and when my father's Ferrari was sabotaged. Lies! Ryan pushed through the crowd, his perfect composure finally broken. All lies fabricated by this resentful mechanic. Resentful about what, Ryan? Mason asked, his amplified voice reaching every corner of the ballroom. About being your father's friend? About keeping his secrets? About witnessing your crime? The Secretary of Commerce approached the stage. Miss Hartwell, these are very serious accusations. If you have evidence, you must present it to the authorities. The evidence is here, Vanessa said, opening the envelope with fingers that no longer trembled. Video recordings, legal documents, and my father's original will, where he clearly establishes that I should inherit control of the company. That's impossible, Ryan screamed. I have the will. I'm the legitimate heir. You have a falsified copy, Mason replied, a version you modified after killing your father. Ugil, the silence in the ballroom was so profound, you could hear 500 people breathing. Vanessa connected a small tablet to the hotel's sound system. The giant screen behind the stage lit up with black and white images of the family garage. This was recorded on the night of March 15, 2021, she announced, 3 days before my father's death. The crowd watched in absolute silence as Ryan appeared on screen, working meticulously under the hood of the red Ferrari. Every cable cut, every calculated movement, every furtive glance backward were exposed under the lights of the city's most elegant ballroom. This is a montage, Ryan screamed, his voice broken by desperation. Those images are altered. It's digital technology. Anything can be faked. But his words were lost among the horrified murmurs of the guests. On screen, Ryan's cold smile after sabotaging the car was undeniable, unmistakable. The Secretary of Commerce turned to Ryan with an expression of disgust. Mr. Hartwell, I think you should come with us. No! Ryan ran toward the stage, pushing guests who got in his way. Vanessa, you're my sister. You can't do this to me. Everything I did was for the family, to preserve Dad's legacy. Preserve. Vanessa came down from the stage to face her brother eye to eye. By killing him, by stealing his company, by destroying everything he represented. He was going to ruin it all. Ryan screamed, his mask of perfection finally destroyed. He was going to give the money to the poor. He was going to waste everything we had built on stupid charities. The words came out of his mouth like poison, confirming every suspicion, every accusation. Reporters recorded every second. Guests stepped back, horrified by the involuntary confession. So you killed him, Vanessa murmured, tears running down her cheeks. You killed our father for money. I did it for us. Ryan grabbed her by the shoulders, his desperation transforming into madness. We were going to be the richest on the continent. We were going to have real power. Mason approached silently from behind. With a quick and precise movement, he grabbed Ryan's wrists and twisted them backward, using a technique he had learned during his years in Italy. Let her go, he said with a deadly voice. Now. At that moment, the ballroom doors opened and 6 armed police officers entered, followed by the State Attorney General. Ryan Hartwell, the Attorney General announced, you're under arrest for the premeditated murder of Jonathan Hartwell, testamentary fraud, and illegal appropriation of assets. The handcuffs gleamed under the crystal lights as they closed around Ryan's wrists. The man who had controlled an empire for 3 years now looked small, broken, pathetic. This isn't over, he muttered as they dragged him toward the exit. Vanessa, this isn't over. But his words were lost among the applause, because for the first time in 3 years, justice had won. The ballroom lights dimmed once more, and when they returned, Vanessa was on stage with a small box in her hand. No one imagined what she was going to show now. 3 hours after Ryan's arrest, the Beverly Hills Grand Hotel had been empty except for 3 people, Vanessa, Mason, and the Attorney General, who was finishing reviewing the final documents of the case. "The evidence is incontrovertible," the Attorney General said, closing his briefcase. "Your brother will face life imprisonment. The original shall be restored. And you, Miss Hartwell, are officially the new president of Hartwell Corporation." Vanessa nodded, but she didn't feel triumph. Only a strange emptiness where her family used to be. "What's going to happen with the sale to Singapore investors?" she asked. "Cancelled immediately. Your lawyers are already working to reverse all contracts that Ryan signed fraudulently." The Attorney General stood up to leave. "Miss Hartwell, I'm very sorry for what happened, but you should know that your father would be proud of what you did tonight." When they were alone, Vanessa and Mason walked in silence toward the hotel parking lot. The night air was fresh, full of promises of new beginnings. "I have to ask for your forgiveness," Vanessa said finally, stopping next to her car. "Why?" "For the way I treated you when we first met, for the coffee I threw at you, for the cruel words." Vanessa looked directly into his eyes. "For being exactly the type of person my father would have despised." Mason smiled with that gentleness that characterized him. "Your father once told me that good people sometimes do bad things when they're lost, but that what matters is what they choose to do when they find their way. And do you think I've found it? I think tonight you showed who you really are, Miss Hartwell. And it's someone Jonathan would have been very proud of." Vanessa felt fresh tears, but this time they were of gratitude, not pain. "What are you going to do now?" she asked. "Go back to my shop. I have some classic cars to restore." Mason paused. "And a yellow Ferrari that needs to be delivered to its rightful owner." "Mason," Vanessa said, making a decision that would change everything. "Would you like to be the technical director of Hartwell Corporation?" "What?" "I need honest people around me. People I can trust completely. People who see beyond appearances and understand what really matters." Vanessa smiled. "Besides, my father chose you as guardian of his most important secrets. That tells me everything I need to know about your character." Mason studied her for a long moment. "Are you sure? I'm a mechanic who cleans streets. You're a brilliant engineer who sacrificed everything to protect the truth. You're the most honest man I've ever met in my life." Vanessa extended her hand. "And you're my friend." Mason took her hand, but instead of shaking it, he brought it to his lips and kissed it softly. "It will be an honor to work with you, Miss Hartwell." "Vanessa," she corrected. "Just Vanessa." As they drove away from the hotel, neither of them noticed the small box that Vanessa had carried to the stage but had never opened. A box that contained the original keys to the yellow Ferrari, and something else. Something her father had hidden for the moment when she would be ready to receive not only her inheritance, but her true purpose in life. But what neither of them knew was that Ferrari still kept one last secret. 1 week later, Vanessa and Mason met at the shop for the official delivery of the yellow Ferrari. The car gleamed under the midday light like a liquid jewel, every perfect curve reflecting years of meticulous work. "Before you drive it," Mason said, "there's something your father asked me to give you when you were ready." He opened the secret compartment behind the seats and took out a brown leather briefcase. "What is this?" "The original blueprints for something your father called Project Hope," Mason explained. "A network of mechanical shops in poor neighborhoods where at-risk youth would learn technical trades and have a second chance." Vanessa opened the briefcase and found dozens of documents. Locations, budgets, training programs, university partnerships. Her father had planned every last detail. He was going to use 20% of the company to finance it, Mason continued. He wanted to create real opportunities for people like me when I was young. "Did you also grow up on the streets?" "Until I was 16, Mason confirmed. "Your father found me stealing tools from a shop. Instead of calling the police, he offered me work. He paid for my university. He taught me that a man is measured by what he gives, not by what he has." Vanessa felt the final pieces of the puzzle falling into place. "That's why he trusted you so much." And that's why he asked me to take care of you. He knew that someday you would have to choose between being like Ryan or being like him. Vanessa closed the briefcase and looked at Mason with new determination. We're going to do it. Project Hope is going to be the first thing we do with Hartwell Corporation. Are you sure? It will be expensive, complicated, I'm sure. Vanessa got into the Ferrari and started the engine. The sound was pure music, power and beauty, combined in perfect harmony. My father built this company to do good. It's time for it to fulfill its true purpose. As the yellow Ferrari roared to life, Mason smiled, watching the woman Vanessa had become. Jonathan would have been proud, but more than that, he would have been at peace, knowing his legacy was in the right hands. 5 years later, Project Hope had grown to become the largest technical training center network in the country. 50 shops in marginalized neighborhoods, 3,000 young people trained, a 95% employment rate among graduates, and at the center of it all, in Mason's original shop that was now a museum and training center, gleamed Jonathan Hartwell's yellow Ferrari. But it was no longer just a car. It was a symbol, a reminder that truth always finds its way to the light, that love can be born even from the deepest humiliation, that families are built with loyalty and sacrifice, not with blood and money. Every day, hundreds of young people passed by the Ferrari and read the plaque that Vanessa had made, in memory of Jonathan Hartwell, who believed everyone deserves a second chance, and in honor of Mason Rodriguez, who proved that dignity is not measured by the clothes you wear, but by the truth you keep in your heart. And sometimes, when the sun set over the city and the shop lights created golden reflections on the yellow metal, visitors swore they could see the smile of a man who had found a way to build something more valuable than a company. He had built hope. Vanessa and Mason married 2 years after that night at the Beverly Hills Grand Hotel. Their wedding was small, intimate, celebrated in the same shop where it all began. Because they had learned that life's most important moments don't need large audiences. They only need true love. And when their children were born, they taught them the story of the yellow Ferrari. They told them about the grandfather they never met, but whose love lived on in every project, in every changed life, in every young person who found their way, because the best stories don't end with, "and they lived happily ever after." They end with, "and they built something beautiful together." If this story touched your heart, give it a like and subscribe. Every story is a seed of hope that reminds us that love and justice always triumph over arrogance and lies. Do you know someone who needs to hear that dignity can't be bought or sold? Share this video, because in a world where it sometimes seems money can do everything, stories like this remind us that the most valuable things have no price: truth, love, and the courage to do what's right. What will be your next decision that makes a difference? Leave us your comment and tell us, have you ever been someone else's Mason in their story?